The Long Way Home, Chapter 26. The Cost of Wisdom. The very first time Terrans had visited this planet, and they were leaving its burdened, rolling hills, were stained red with blood. Vincent didn't trouble himself over with what's said about humanity and their uplives, but he did concern himself with the drops of one person's blood staining the round little green leaves and the brush below. The George boy. God, he was only a boy. His face was misshapen by bruises and swollen, split skin, particularly the left side of his face. He wasn't in any danger of bleeding out, at least not from the visible wounds. Vincent thought that broken arm might be trouble, though. He did his best to not jostle it, and to keep it immobile on Jason's chest as it rose and fell in shallow panting. Long, measured, ground-eating strides filled the air with the crackling of hundreds of tiny twigs with each of his heavy footfalls. The limp form of the boy in his arms was deceptively heavy. He carried more than just a boy's battered frame. He had made it in time. He prayed to God that his strength wouldn't fail the children now. Behind him, Mrs. Magdalene stumbled and sniffled in a struggle to carry the weapons and keep pace, all while failing to stem the flow of tears. Vincent bitterly wished that they had had the time to pause and offer her a little comfort, or that he could just tell her to abandon his guns. Vincent bitterly wished that his chief wasn't able to work his magic with her. Such selfish wishes had to be pushed to the back of his mind, however. At the fore, he kept intertwined the twins of the desperate prayer to the Almighty Christ that he would not fail these children even after making it in time, and exactly how to make sure he and the kids had the best shot at helping Jason. He knew that enemy used missiles and plasma. He could work with that. He was coming to a decision just as the long way came into view. Chandra and Vi stood vigil waiting for them at the foot of the boarding ramp, and on sight of them, they ran to meet Vincent. Despite her stubby limbs, Vi was still a heavy wielder on a light world, so she did manage to reach them first by about 1.5 yards. Ancestors, she swore, or maybe prayed. Vincent had a hard time turning past the horror and sorrow in her voice. Either way, she called back to Chandra. She cut off and swallowed before trying again. His arm is broken. Left or right? The sapphire-skinned girl called to her friend. Left, Vi answered, despite tears welling up in the dark eyes. Go to the engine room and run, type J-left-arm into the console on the printer and hit run, Chandra called back as she redoubled her efforts to reach him. Vi immediately sprinted back towards the long way without so much as wiping away her tears to do his bidding. Vincent decided that moving any faster might hurt Jason more than his careful but brisk pace. He made that decision in silence. Chandra met them well enough and began washing the drying blood from Jason's wounds on his face with a squeeze bottle in one hand, a soft rag in another, the portable first aid kit in another, and cycling through disinfectant, wound-safe glue, and pull strips with her last hand, all while nimbly keeping pace. She didn't say anything about what she saw. She didn't need to. Vincent felt the same way. "Cadet!" Vincent called up the ramp. "Take off and fly towards the ocean. Stay low." His boots thudded on the plating of the boarding ramp, and he burst his way into the galley, even as Chandra kept pace in front of him. "I should lie him down," Vincent said. Without a word, Chandra stirred her supplies and dashed the dishes from the morning breakfast into the floor and pointed to the table before gulping audibly and saying, "Please be gentle." Vincent eased the battered boy onto the makeshift medical station and managed not to jump at the clatter that arose from where the corridor leading to the cockpit and the boarding ramp were. However, his head snapped around to show the sight of Mrs. Magdalene shuffling through the pile of guns and his tomahawk with limply dangling arms and tears streaming from her wildly staring eyes. Vincent tore his eyes away from the nascent noblewoman to look at Chandra's painting face so he could tell her, "Get Vi to help her." Chandra nodded to him and kept working without a word, but Vi was scrambling up the stairs from the engine room carrying 2 slightly curved pieces of plastic, declaring, "This thing is ready." "Before you go," Chandra said to Vincent, "we don't have a med scanner, so I have to set the bones in his forearm by feel. I gave him an anesthetic, but Terrans sometimes don't exactly follow the dosing rules. I might need you to hold him down." Vincent swallowed his nose, placing a hand on Jason's chest, the other on his left forearm above his elbow, and nodded. Chandra gently grasped the George boy's arm. Good God, he was only a boy. On either side of the nasty break in his forearm were the upper hands, and probed the swollen skin with the fingers of her lower ones. The boy didn't stir. She nodded, pulled, twisted, and took up the plastic pieces of the printed splint with a relieved sigh. "Thank you, Uncle Vincent. I think you should go help Cadet now." "Yeah," he grunted. "I should." While Vincent strode towards the cockpit, he could hear Chandra declare bluntly, "Bye, Mrs. Magdalene needs help too. I have Jason." As Vincent dropped himself into his seat, Cadet asked from the co-pilot's chair, Should he have tried and shut off the grav generator?
No, Jason's hurt, and that might be bad for him.
Vincent watched his cadet's eyes that he could see widened. Its pupils became a pinprick and the roll in his sockets when he said,
Yeah, he's hurt bad.
Vincent took the yoke in his hands and the control of the long way with it, and checked the various readouts. It looked like the enemy had noticed the strange ship. It didn't matter much. Cadet had gotten them over open water, and after just another half a minute, Vincent rolled the long way into a dive that plunged her beneath the choppy surface of the planet's sea. Snapped from his panic by shock, the Corvian boy asked, Underwater?
Yeah, water absorbs heat and impacts very well, and plays merry hell with senses. It's the best hiding place we'll find without getting to MSD.
How bad is he hurt? Cadet asked after a beat of silence. Vincent directed what little of the power from thrust to shields he could without going to the engine room to keep the pressures of the deep sea from crushing his little yacht, before he answered,
Bad. Real bad.
His family, Cadet muttered. Real family.
Yeah, mine too.
Vincent banked to avoid a submarine rock formation as the avian boy clicked his beak twice before filling his chest with a deep breath and asking, Do you mind if I call you Dad?
Son, Vincent sighed, I'll ask you why later.
The first thing that Jason was aware of was the pain. The discordant agony was such that instead of getting up today, or evening, or whatever it was, he pressed his eyes more tightly closed and attempted to will himself back to sleep. This, of course, didn't work. So Jason let out something that was between a rueful sigh and a pained groan as he opened his eyes. Only one eye obeyed. Jason could feel something soft pressing against the left side of his face over the eye, so he made to brush it aside with his left hand, but found his entire arm was immobilized between two pieces of something hard. So he reached up with his right instead. That was right. He'd been in a fight. He remembered now. He'd gotten a broken arm in the fight. The soft thing uncooperatively refused to be brushed away, and felt a lot like gauze held in place by med tape under his fumbling fingers to his still drowsy and pain-muddled mind. With something that was a lot more pain-groaned than rueful sigh, Jason sat up to realize that he'd been put in Vincent's berth. It made sense to him, since Vincent's cabin was the only place aboard that wasn't a shared space or multi-purpose, if not both. He caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirrored closet door beside the berth. He scrutinized the swollen purple splotches across his face and bare chest, the white bandaging dotting his face, and the strips of tape holding a wide square of gauze over his left eye. You've been through the mangle, Jason told the reflection, talking hurt his chest a little. Finding nothing else of interest in his reflection, he cast his eyes across the dimness of Vincent's cabin to settle on the shaggy outline of the old man on his knees and slumped forward. Jason listened to the hum of the long-way systems and decided that they weren't in hyperspace. He thought that odd. He took a deep breath. It hurt. He let the breath out and tried again. Still hurt, of course, but he said a little more loudly,
Turn and turn about, huh?
Jason didn't take any pleasure in the sudden, startled snorting that Vincent made as he was roused from his slumbering slumber. Well, not very much pleasure, anyway.
You're awake,
Vincent blearily observed. Aye, you too, Jason replied. The long way seemed to speak a good morning to him in the silence valve between them. Well, Jason asked when he found the curiosity outweighed his patience at length.
Well,
Vincent said slowly.
Well, a lot of things. You didn't ask, but I guess you'd want to know you were out for almost 2 days. It was probably the anesthetic more than the injuries, though.
Jason nodded and waited for Vincent to continue.
We're hiding under the planet's ocean right now, since I couldn't risk putting any maneuvers until, well, you know.
Vincent's voice caught in his throat, and Jason waited patiently once more. When the continuation wasn't forthcoming, Jason prompted, Was Isis Magdalene hurt? Jason heard the beads of Vincent's rosary click together before he answered,
No. Well, scuffed knees and some hair loss, but that's not Chief. Chief, she's not okay. She won't come out of the girls' room, and Tran and Bai say she won't speak to them.
I'll get on that, Jason said immediately, as his mind began to whir on the problem of what to do.
Kid,
Vincent started before faltering. Jason shot him a crooked grin and asked, You going to confront me on my bad habit of picking fights?
Should I?
That question hit Jason like a hammer with its earnest worry and pain. So he cast his mind back to when he decided to fight. No, he said at length, no. I think I waited as long as I could. I tried running, and I tried hiding first, but this is between us. But Isis Magdalene was having a full-blown panic attack. She was leading them right to us. Vincent's eyes bore into Jason's very heart, and the beads in Vincent's rosary clicked in a long beat of silence between them until he said,
All right, good. You fought like a lost boy out there, kid. For some reason, Jason's vision blurred, and there was a lump in his throat, obstructing the word, "Thanks." And Chief, I'm sorry. Tran did her best, but your eye, it's gone. Jason found himself clutching at the hem of Vincent's blanket with his right hand and shaking his head as if in denial. He took in a pained breath to say something, but he caught on that lump in his dry throat and started coughing instead. In a flash, Vincent was in the narrow space between the berth and the closet, holding a glass of cool water to Jason's lips with one hand and supporting his back with the other while he said, "Easy, kid. Easy. Take it easy." Jason wondered why his throat hurt so badly, but then remembered that there had been fingers wrapped around it. He would have nodded to himself at the recollection, but he was busy sipping at the proffered water gratefully. Once his throat had been wetted, he tried to push Vincent away so that he could swing his feet to the deck. But the man put the glass back on the shelf by the berth and pressed Jason's chest in place with gentle pressure with his free hand. "Uncle Vincent," Jason said, "I should go check on everyone."
"Not yet,"
the old man gruffly grunted, and Jason found himself in a warm embrace. The dam broke. Tears streamed from Jason's good eye and soaked into the gauze covering the empty socket as he sobbed into his uncle's chest. "Good God, I was so afraid. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't strong enough. They nearly got her. Even though, Mother, in heaven, I was so afraid."
"I know, Chief. I know."
Some hour and a half later, Vincent sat at the dinette, drumming his fingers on the table as the children all filed in, all except one. Well, that would take a little time. He looked over the faces of the kids in his camp and saw a fear there he ought to have kept them from learning. Even Jason's ever-buoyant confidence was somewhat tempered by the shades of pain not kept at bay by the pills he'd uncomplainingly swallowed. The LEDs, imitating oil lamps, cast a flickering yellow light over their faces in what Vincent thought of as dour shades.
"Bear with me,"
he began, and halted once more, finding that the words he'd carefully gathered before had absconded the moment he needed to speak them. A breath in and out again for a few seconds to scrape something together. Order. Vincent had to talk about things in order.
"First things first. The way I was thinking about this, it wasn't right. Wasn't the best way to run things."
It looked to Vincent like Tondre might say something, but Jason gave her hand a squeeze, and she shared a worried glance with her cousin.
"I was thinking about our journey back sort of like a road trip, almost like a vacation, and, that wasn't right. Not that I don't like spending the time, but maybe if I'd taken the course a little more seriously."
"Maybe, maybe not," the chief quietly said. "That's not for you or me to know."
"Thanks, Chief,"
Vincent fairly whispered.
That's true. Point is, we can't make 1 or 2 week jumps and camp out for a couple days, or maybe a week anymore. It's too risky."
Vincent coughed a lump out of his throat before he continued.
"So we're going to spend a lot more time in the hyperspace sea. Without breaks, 3 or 4 weeks at a jump. And we'll spend this little time dirtside as we can. I've got all the route charted already, and it takes some risks. We'll have to go right through a couple of fortified places. The long way isn't armed. She isn't armed. So if we're pulled into a real space, we'll have to use the pirate hunting trick again. Even if we don't get crab spike, it'll take around 8 months before we can call for help. That, and we'll have to be smart about getting food. Maybe we can start eating the canned goods. There are maybe 2 places I could get some game from our route."
Vincent trailed off into silence as he ran his mind over everything he said, and finding he'd told them everything he said.
"And that's how it is."
"Uncle Vincent," the chief said, even more softly, "I don't figure I'll be much help with my arm busted. How long is our first jump?"
6 weeks, Vincent told him. "And your best help wasn't ever with your hands around here anyway. The rest of us can pick up your slack for a while."
The weak shadow of a smile flickered across the chief's face in a warm light before he said soberly, "I hope so." Vincent nodded to him and nudged Cadet, who remained uncharacteristically silent, to let him out.
"I'm going to go get a shower and a nap. I want to break Atmo in about 4 hours. Cadet, make sure you're ready."
Jason watched as the exhausted old man stiffly make his way towards the head in the silence that had fallen amongst those who remained at the table. Finally, Cadet spoke up. "I guess you're going to think that you're going to wait for us to go off into the different rooms so that you can check in on us one by one now, huh?" "Am I really that predictable?" Jason asked, with the beginnings of a grin pulling up one corner of his mouth. Cadet clicked his beak irritably and puffed his feathers out in a long, showy ripple of azure before he said, I thought you weren't going to be reckless again. Jason put out a placating right palm and said, I didn't pick the fight. It picked me. Believe me, I did my level best to get away before I pulled the trigger. And then I was mainly fighting to get away. Cadet glared at Jason with one eye before he slumped back onto the bench across from Jason, Trondre, and Vi before he muttered, Well, so long as you had to fight, I asked him. And, Jason prompted, surprised to feel the anticipatory butterflies in his belly of good news, and said, He said that he wants to talk of it later, but he called me son. Jason blinked away tears welling up in his eyes, and he said, That means yes. You've adopted him. It does? The younger boy asked, tentatively. A bright, beaming smile broke across Trondre's face as she delightfully declared, Oh, that's wonderful. I hope you told him the words. It's important to say the words. It's traditional when you welcome someone into the family, you say, Jason explained. You say welcome home, and then you didn't know you missed them until you met. It's important, Trondre echoed. Oh, Vi said pensively. What's up? Jason asked as he turned his eye on her. It's nothing really, she said, a loud snap of her tail on the bench betraying her nerves. Jason raised his uncovered eyebrow at her, and she said, It's just, not that long ago, I thought being taken by the pirates was the scariest thing that could happen. And then there was the awful day with the birds, and then I was sure that nothing could be worse than those things tramping through Owl the long way and smashing out things. I was wrong again. I just want to know if the world can get scarier. Trondre's eyes fell to the table. Cadet's feathers slicked to his neck and chest to make himself smaller and less noticeable. And Jason wrapped a good arm around her as he mused. I don't figure it gets any less scary. The way I see things, there's always something worse out there. But it doesn't really matter how scary or bad things can get. Vi nestled into Jason and mumbled, Why? Well, because as you grow up, you face one scary thing after another, and maybe they get worse and worse. But you get braver and braver as you go along. Bad things happen, and you make it through the other side because you were brave. And the next time, you can be a little braver. You can't be brave if you aren't afraid first. Vi fixed her gaze upon the gauze covering the empty socket where his eye once was, and said, But if you make it through, but you aren't the same. I did my best, but a person's body isn't like an engine room, Trondre muttered towards the table. You're never the same as you were, Jason said with a sudden realization. Every day you have to decide how different you'll be. Vi, I think you get braver and kinder every day, and even more on scary days. Fran, you're as solid as a rock. Cadet, good God, you're a strong person. We all decided how to be, but the one thing we can't be is the same. It sounds like you're getting ready to go into battle, Trondre said as Vi let go of Jason's middle. Maybe I am, Jason sighed as he stood and stepped towards the girl's cabin. Maybe I am. Pray for me. Jason let out a slow breath and inhaled sharply as he opened the door to the girl's cabin. Within, Isis Magdalene sat huddled in the corner on the deck, staring at nothing. Jason carefully blanked his face so she wouldn't see the pity lancing through his heart and asked, Mind if I come in? Her eyes snapped onto him and she scrambled to get to her feet. Just before she was halfway up, Jason said, Don't! If you get down on your horns again, I might just weep. The girl blushed, a deeper scarlet, and sank back onto her haunches to hug her knees again, and asked in the husky tones of a girl recently crying, What want you with me? What makes you think I came here because of you? Jason prodded. I keep my clothes here, you know. Oh, might I help you in getting your clothing then? Jason sighed and said, Sorry, bad joke. Mind if I sit with you? Do as you please. One such as I shall not impede you. Jason walked in and eased himself down along the wall beside her, with an awkward care not to bump or jostle his broken arm with a deep sigh. I figured I might have scared you some in the fight, Jason said, and I did ruin your dress. Oh, and I touched you, so I wanted to come say sorry for all that. Have no fear. I know it was needfully done, the young aristocrat said wistfully. The peril showed my folly yet. Sorry, I wasn't better, Jason said before she could find the rest of his thought. Stronger, faster, a better shot, smarter, something. I'm sorry that I wasn't good enough to stop them from touching you. Such a strange boy you are, she blurted out in a voice catching on a sob. I coming here to make apologies for my wrong. Now that wasn't something that Jason had expected to hear. So he grunted before he could stop himself. Huh? Such a terrible oath. I caused you to make such a terrible oath, and I knew not what it meant when you spoke it. I knew not. But now I have seen this, Jason asked, pointing at the gauze taped over his empty eye socket. Worth it. Nay, not that, Isis Magdalene moaned. Though it is terrible, worse is the price the others saw not. Say perhaps Vincent Pathfinder, for he sees clearer than most. I speak of the slaying. Oh,
Jason said as he scrutinized his knees. How do you mean? I told you once of my small talent. As I beheld you locked in mortal combat against our foe, each one you fell launched your own heart. Unbidden, into my mind came the thought, he shall mourn this one too. Each time you slew another of my race taken by the consumptive grubs. Aye, Jason admitted, as he fixed her with a hard one-eye stare before continuing. That's all true. It was worth it to keep you safe. By the Empress's tears. You believe that? Isis Magdalene whispered in awed grief. Christ himself is my witness. I have done the same thing, even if I'd never spoken that oath, Isis Magdalene. Just what exactly do you think the breaker of chains did? Jason didn't know that there had been a tear for Isis Magdalene to reach up and wipe away with her thumb. I dare not ask you to forgive me. I never blamed you in the first place, Jason told her with perfect honesty. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.